in the end, Jalen got what he wanted. Right. But do you feel like this is a good thing for the NFL?
I do. I mean, I don't think – I know the owners are unhappy about the level of leverage that some of the star players are applying right now, but I don't think it's been terribly bad for the NBA if you look at that model. It creates interest in the game, and having a star like him in a city like L.A., I think it's huge. They're having a tough time attracting a fan base, and you need to have a personality like that, particularly when your quarterback is not the guy who – or hasn't turned out to be the type of player that we all expected him to be. So I think it's going to be overall good for the NFL, and it's overall good for Jalen Ramsey. And players having more power in general, I think, is a good thing for leagues.
I like it, but I don't love it. And what I mean by that is that, you know, we got to be careful. In Jalen's case, this does not apply. I don't blame him one bit. You're in Jacksonville. You know, you're a top 5 pick. You watch 3 of the other 4 guys picked ahead of you get their money. You didn't get yours. But really the reason why he wanted out was because of that relationship with Tom Coughlin, from everything I heard, more so than Doug Marrone. It was really about him and Tom Coughlin. I'd like to know more about that. I'd like to learn more about that, because the part that I don't want to really circulate out there is that you had a young brother who was a malcontent, forced his way out, ended up in this situation, and just leaving it at that. In other words, if you had a problem, too many times we find ourselves talking about the player and what the player wanted, and this is why it ended up happening. Well, guess what? I want to hear about when Tom Coughlin, I'm saying, I'm not accusing Tom Coughlin of anything, because I don't know. But I will remind everybody that Reggie White, the former Minister of Defense, Max, you know him well, and how great he was. Once upon a time, he was in Philadelphia with Norman Brahman, I believe that was his name. The owner looked him in the face and said, I own you. Oh. You understand? And that was what, now this is back in early 1990s or whatever it was. And that was the moment that Reggie White said, oh, no, I'm up out of here. You see what I'm saying? So when that kind of dialogue gets revealed to us, you have a nation of people that's ready to stand up and be like, hell yeah, we don't blame you one bit. That's entirely different than, you know, well, I don't like you. You understand what I'm saying? I just think you too rigid. I want out of here. Because that's not an ideal circumstance that should lead to somebody's exit from one place to a better situation. And that's all I'm saying about the whole Jalen Ramsey situation. I would have liked to know more about what it was about his relationship with Tom Coughlin. When stuff like that happens, I want details, because I don't want it to just be about a player who's perceived as being a malcontent that successfully forced his way out because a different narrative is created from that.
I love it. It makes the league more interesting. I mean, NBA hot stove, like that's almost the best thing about it. And baseball is the same thing. And football has some of that. Good for football. Keep in mind what this is really about. Just imagine you own any business. You know, in business school, they call it widgets, right? Like you produce widgets. What are you interested in? You want to make a profit. You want to make as much money as you can. That's great. That's American. There's nothing wrong with that. So you want to control costs, right? The NFL owners, when they see players, and franchise owners, just like in any business, they see them as a cost. They'd like to keep that cost as low as possible. And what's interesting to me about the public and even the media reaction, oftentimes to this throughout the history of our country, has been, and maybe this is just human nature, if the person who controls the money, the owner does something, that's Mr. So-and-so, we respect it, but the people actually doing the work, if they want to get paid, who do they think they are? They want control over their own destiny? This is just about players taking some control back. And by the way, in baseball, once upon a time, there was a reserve clause, no free agency, right? Then that fell and because the owners want control. Here, Jalen Ramsey saying, I'm not happy where I am. I'd like to be somewhere else. He used what he could to get somewhere else.
Are you guys afraid of the message it sends? Like, hey, I'm pouting, and now I'm going to get traded to get what I want.
I like the message it sends.
Younger generation.
I know. I like it. You take what. So you guys have brought this all in line with Curt Flood to Reggie White to the birth of free agency. This is just about the evolution of players taking more power, and this is the new iteration of it. And I don't have a problem with it. I understand what you're saying, Molly, is that you want to kind of teach the teamwork and you stick it out and whatever, but people have the employers
have for the real world.
I understand, but employers have an obligation to the players or to employees also, and we all can relate to that. Everyone who's watching this who has a job, and all of us can relate to that. If our employer does something that we don't appreciate, we want the right to take our talents elsewhere. And these players have extraordinary special talents, and I think that they should be able to flex that muscle, because it's not just signing a check is not enough. You also have to treat the guys with respect. And again, to your point, we don't know what happened with Tom Coughlin, but whatever happened in that situation was bad enough for Jalen Ramsey Ramsey to 1 out.
Think about this real quick. What's the average NFL career now?
Do you
I
know?
think it's like 3.5.
3.5 years. You get drafted to a place. If you're a high pick, you've worked your whole life to be the best in the world at something. You get to the highest level, and then they tell you you will be forced to play in a place for more time than the average career. You may never even get to free agency if you just have an average length career.
Well, I got a double-pronged response to that. Number one, you know what you're walking into. It's not like you were forced to play in the NFL. You know what you're entering. You know what you're participating in. So let's be careful about that. And number two, and I'm sure you will agree with this, again, we're not talking about Jalen Ramsey here. We're talking about an elite cornerback. We know how big time he was. We know that the situation wasn't ideal for him in Jacksonville. This is not about Jalen Ramsey. Overall, I think you would appreciate this point. Let's be careful in terms of, yeah, we want power. We want player empowerment. There's got to be the right people to have that power, too. Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.